Welcome to AIKTC Open Courseware. This is Open Source Technology Lab and my name is Tabrez Khan. So, learning of the day. Today we'll be learning Python with MySQL, and for this we'll be starting with MySQL and its installation. Here we'll see what is MySQL, some basic stuff about MySQL and how to install MySQL. Second thing, MySQL Connector for Python. Here we'll see a package which is required to connect MySQL database management system with Python, and then we'll see how to connect MySQL with Python using the given package, and then lastly we'll see a Python program to perform the basic CRUD operations. CRUD stands for create, read, update and delete operations on MySQL database. So let's start. So the first thing is MySQL and its installations. So for that, since I am working on Windows operating system, depending upon the operating system on your machine, whether it's Windows or it is Linux or it is Mac, you can install a specific MySQL database management system. So MySQL is a relational database management system. Now what do you mean by relational database management system? A database management system is a software which is required to manage a data. Basically, we used to manage our data into a flat files, but we have lot many issues and problems associated with that kind of data storage. So what has been done to provide data efficiency, to provide data security, to provide data integrity and lot many features, we have database management systems which are special softwares. So we have so many database management systems into the market available to us. Many are paid softwares, many are free and open source softwares. One among them is MySQL. You can say MySQL. So MySQL is a relational database management system which we'll be using for our purpose. So what do you need to do? Just Google for MySQL Community Server download. We'll be using MySQL Community Server. Now when you search for this, the first thing you get is MySQL Community Server. You can read it as MySQL or MySQL. So this is at deo.mysql.com. So please click on this link. Then we comes to a page MySQL Community Downloads, and it is available on deo.mysql.com. So deo.mysql.com is a home page for MySQL database, and when you come on this specific page for community server download, here you have all the options, whether you want it for Microsoft Windows, for Ubuntu Linux, for Debian Linux and so on. So since I am running on Windows operating system, so I will be installing for Microsoft Windows. So if you are also running Microsoft Windows operating system 7 or 10, accordingly you can install a specific server. Now here we have two things. So binaries is also available and directly archive is also available. So you can click on this and you can start with the download, wherein you will be getting option to run the executable, because you will be getting the executable to run, and once you start that executable, you will be starting the installation of MySQL. Now since on my machine MySQL is already installed, so I will not be going for it, but you need to install MySQL Community Server if you do not have MySQL on your machine. Now this is the latest version of MySQL Server 8.0.19. So MySQL 8 is the latest MySQL database management system which is available right now. So once your installation is done, during the installation you will be getting various windows where you need to just keep on clicking the next and so on, as we generally do on Windows operating system. And in between you will be getting one window where you will be asked for a password, and then the username would be there, root, ROOT, root. So for that root, whatever password you give, you need to remember that password, because that root user is something like a admin to a MySQL database management system software which is getting installed on your machine. So your root user, you need to remember, will be acting as the admin of your MySQL DBMS. So please do remember the password of that root user, whatever password you are going to set for the root user, because using that password only you will be logging in for the first time on your MySQL server. Once your MySQL server is installed, then what you need to do, just start your terminal. Whether you are on Linux, Mac or Windows, you need to just start your terminal, and there you need to give a command MySQL dash u space, then the username, for example root space minus p. So minus u stands for the username and minus p stands for the password. So MySQL space minus u space root space minus p. Then hit the enter key, and then you will be prompted for a password. Now whatever password you have given or you have set during the installation of the MySQL database management system software, the same password you need to provide here. If you provide any wrong password, then you will be given this kind of error: access denied for user root at localhost using password equals to yes. So let me give a right password. The moment I give a right password, then I get into a MySQL prompt, MySQL command prompt. So welcome to the MySQL monitor, and command ends with semicolon. Then this is the connection ID 9, and then the server edition is the server version is 8.0.19, and which is MySQL Community Server. And if you want any help, then you can simply type help semicolon. Then you will be given with so many commands which you can use on your MySQL command prompt. So now the first thing that we'll be doing is seeing the databases which are there into our MySQL database management system. So these are the default databases which directly comes along with your except this OSTLDB which I have created. So except this OSTLDB, the remaining are the default databases which directly do come with your database management system when you install it for the first time. So after this command show databases, you need to create a database, and for creating a database the command is create space database, and then the database name. For example, the database that we'll be creating and using in our program would be OSTLDB. So I name it as OSTLDB semicolon, and then you need to just enter the hit key. You need to hit the enter key. Now in my case it is showing me an error that can't create database OSTLDB database exists, because I have already created OSTLDB. Now since it won't be there on your MySQL for the first time, so when you put command and when you fire this command, so your OSTLDB database will be created. So once your database has been created, now next thing you need to do is to create a user to access or to use this database OSTLDB. Now we won't be using the root user, though the root user have access for all the databases of our database management system, but it is always better to create another user which will be having access only to this database and not to any other database of the database management system. So how to create a user? To create a user, the command is now. One question could be there that how you would come to know all these commands, and how to create a database, how to create a user, or how to create a table, then how to insert a data into the table, how to delete a data from the table. So for all those stuff, you can again go to dev.mysql.com. On this site you have the entire documentation, and in that entire documentation you will get help for each and everything for all the MySQL commands. Or if you put any search string on your search engine, like uh, create command on MySQL, or the say create user command on MySQL, create database command on MySQL, you will be getting the entire help. So in the documentation, you can go to the documentation, there you will get all the help. So there are many websites available wherein you will get online help about the commands used to create the database, command used to create the user, command used to create the table, and so on. The reason is that the primary idea of this session is not to learn about a database, but to learn about a Python code wherein we can connect to the database and perform few basic operations. So the next command is create user space, then the username, and then the password. So create user space, in single quotes you need to specify the username. So for example, user is OSTL. So this is my user, then the single quotes, this is my username at the rate, and I'm creating this user for MySQL on my machine. So at the rate add, again a single quote, and then localhost. Why localhost? Because my database server MySQL is running on my machine. So same machine. So since it is running on the same machine, that's why I'm writing localhost. So create user, username at the rate, machine name, which is localhost in my case, and also in your case it would be same, localhost space identified by identified by space, and then in single quotes password. In our case we'll be keeping the password for this user as OSTL user semicolon. So create user, username OSTL in single quote, and then at the rate, and then your machine on which the MySQL is installed, and you want to create a user for that MySQL. So it is localhost, and then identified by. So here comes the password again in single quotes, and this password we are keeping as OSTL user. Now, again, I am getting a error operation create user failed for OSTL localhost because I have already created a user OSTL on my machine. So, since I have created the user OSTL on my machine for MySQL, so I am getting this error. But when you create it for the first time, you won't be getting an error. Instead, you will be getting a message which shows that a OSTL user has been created. So now once the user has been created, the next most important thing you need to do is to assign privileges or grant privileges to this user to access our database OSTL DB. What we want that this user OSTL should have all access or should be granted with all the privileges to access everything on OSTLDB. So this OSTL user should be in a position to use OSTLDB, should be in a position to create tables into the OSTLDB, should be in a position to delete the tables, and so on. So all access or all privileges to the user OSTL on the database OSTLDB. So how to do that? For that the command is grant privileges database on database OHTLDB dot star. So it simply means that inside OHTLDB database everything, star stand for everything. So grant privileges on OHTLDB dot star to the user. Which user? Again in single quotes, OHTL single quotes @ single quote localhost single quotes semicolon. So grant privileges on OHTLDB dot star to OHTL @ localhost. Enter. Illegal privilege level specified for privileges. So since I have already granted privileges to OHTLDB to OHTL user to on OHTLDB, so I am getting this error. Or let me check the syntax of the grant privileges. And as I said, we need to just Google for it. Let's check this. DigitalOcean is a good place. Yes, our query was correct. Grant, grant all privileges. Sorry, not only grant privileges. It should be grant all privileges. So grant all privileges. Okay. So it is again granting the privileges by user. So this kind of output you will be getting. Query okay, 0 rows affected. It means that there is nothing wrong with the query. And once this is done, so we need to just come out of the MySQL prompt. And I have come out from the MySQL prompt. And now I need to log in to my SQL server, with a user OHTL -p, and the password for OHTL is OHTL user. And now we have logged in into the MySQL Community Server using OHTL user, not the root user. So if I fire the command show databases, so now see here carefully. So I am shown with only two databases, information schema and OHTLDB. Earlier we were shown with so many databases because the user was root, and here the user is OHTL, so it is showing the databases for which we have an access. So now since these two are the databases and OHTL is the database which we have created, so the next command which we need to give is use OHTLDB. Now with this command we will be using a OHTLDB database. So we are into the OHTLDB database. It is something like earlier we were into the entire space, entire region, and now since we want to work into the OHTLDB region or OHTLDB space, so we are entering into the OHTLDB space. So for that the command is used OHTLDB. The moment this is done, then now here we can create our tables, and then we can store the data into our tables. Now what is a table? Now as I said you that MySQL is a relational database management system. Now what do you mean by a relational database management system? A relational database management system is a database management system which maintains a data in the form of relations. Now these relations are nothing but tables. So a single relation is a single table. Now, if you visualize a table, so basically a table is nothing but a collection of rows and columns. So let me show you that if you work on Excel or a spreadsheet, so open a blank one. So here you have a collection of column, columns and rows. So this is nothing but some sort of a table. So for example, if I say that my first column is roll number and my second column is name, third column is address, fourth column is say mobile, and so on likewise. So these column names are nothing but attributes or properties of a table. Attributes or properties of a table. And then the moment we start putting a data, for example, the number one, name is say Ahmed, address is say Mumbai, and mobile is say 989898 and so on, something like this. So this becomes one row, and this one row is nothing but one object or one entity. Likewise, we can keep on putting the data into our table. So you can give a name to this entire collection. That name becomes a table name, and then these column names are nothing but the attributes or the columns or the fields of that table, and then each row becomes one tuple, or you can say one object or one entity into that table. So the question is how to create such a table. So when you create such a table into the database management system, there are a few important things. For example, you need to write a name of a table. For example, if I name this sheet, say student, so this is something like a name of my table. And then once I decide, okay, what should be the name of my table, then I need to work out that what all fields or what all columns I need to have into my tables, and then what should be the type of these columns. Name and type, sorry, name and type. So for example, my first column would be say roll number, and if I want it to be integer, so I can make it integer, and if I want it to be unique, then I can put a constraint on it that it should, or it will be acting as a primary key. So since it will be acting as a primary key, you cannot have two rows or two tuples with the same roll number. So that will be taken care by your database management system. Once you say that the roll number is going to be a primary key for this table, then the second column name would be name, and that type of that name is going to be a string, and the length of the string is could be say anything from say 0 character to say 100 characters or 200 characters. So this is something like a varying characters. So we have a type called varchar in MySQL. So likewise, address would be varchar, your mobile would be varchar, and so on. So if you remember your previous programs, so in our previous programs, when we started working on student entity, so there we had, let me open, what happened? let it be, there is some problem. So we'll directly open that program. So which one was that? Okay, fine. If you remember this also. So in this program, we were working on a student. So in a student class, we had so many attributes. For example, roll number, name, address, mobile, and then number of courses, then credits, and then finally we extended it with courses and skills. So we'll be following the same thing. So now we'll be creating a table wherein student table, same student table. The student table will be having a roll number, name, address, mobile, then credits, and then number of courses, and then courses itself, list of courses, and then skills. So we'll be following the same thing, and now we'll be creating a student table which will be having all these properties or all these columns. So let's go for it, and the command would be create table, then the table name student, and then opening parenthesis, and then the name of the fields which we want to have. So it's better to just have it on a different line. So my first column or first field would be roll number. So roll number, and I want it to be of type integer. So let me have it as integer, and I say that it can be up to maximum 6 length, integer of 6 length, and then as I said you that we want to make it primary key. So we'll be putting a constant, and we'll be informing or we'll be saying to the database management system that into this table student, this column roll number is going to be a primary key. It means that you cannot have two tuples or two rows or two objects with the same roll number, and that will be taken care by the database management system. So if intentionally or unintentionally, whenever you uh, enter a student information which is going to have a roll number which is already existing into the table, so the database management system will throw you an exception. It will be giving you a message that it's a primary key and the duplicate values are not allowed, something like that. So comma, again enter. So next column is going to be name, and as I said you that it will be of varying character, so the type is varchar in MySQL, and suppose the maximum is 100, so I say 100 in parentheses, comma, next is address, again of varying character size, say up to 200 characters, then mobile, and let me keep it varchar only, say up to length 15, or we can make it int also, but since sometime it has plus sign also, so better to keep it varchar. And then we're going to have credit, so credit, and it will be integer obviously, and it can be up to say 3 digit. Then number of courses, so number of courses you can have hyphen, number of courses, sorry, underscore not hyphen, sorry, underscore not hyphen, number of courses, and it will be again integer, say of 3 maximum. Then the courses itself, the list of courses, obviously it would be varchar, say of 100, and then the skills, again varchar, say of 100. Fine. Now only this many fields we want into the student table. So once this is done, So for this opening parenthesis, we will be having a closing parenthesis finally, and after that closing parenthesis semicolon. So this is how you will be creating a table student into your database management system. Now, since I have already created a table into my database OSTLDB, the same table student. So, but for the illustrating the query or the command for it, I have written this. So, create table student parenthesis, then the first column name, that is roll number, then the type integer up to say length of 6, and it will be a primary key. So the constraint is primary key, comma. The second column is type, comma. Third column is type, fourth column is type, and so on. Once everything has been specified, so closing parenthesis, semicolon, and then you need to hit the enter key. Now since in my case the table already exists, so I am getting this error. In your case, since you will be creating it for the first time, it will be successfully created. Once it is done, then the next command you need to give is to check student table. So describe student table. The command is DESC space the name of the table. The name of the table is student. So describe student table. It will describe the student table. So here it will give you all the fields, then the type of each field, then whether it's null or not null, and then what kind of constraint it has, whether it is primary key, foreign key, and so on. Then what is the default value, and some uh, extra information about that field. So roll number, name, mobile address, CO stand for courses, CR stand for credits, then SK for skills, and this is number of courses. So the three fields are of integer type. Roll number is int, credit int, number of courses int, remaining are varchar type, and your roll number is a primary key. Now once this is done, your table has been created. Then the next important thing is to insert a data into a table. So if you remember this, so the way we were inserting a data, for example, if I say insert a new tuple, a new data, I would be inserting the data like this, and the same can be done in MySQL, but here you need to give a query for it or the command for it, and the command is insert into table name student, and then space values, we'll be giving a values, and then the values. So now what you need to do, so the query is insert space into table name space values. Again, if you just give a simple search string into the Google, you'll be getting a help on it, and you need to follow this. That the first is roll number, so you will be specifying the roll number. For example, I specify roll number say 10, comma. The second value is name. Now all the strings should be specified in single quotes or double quotes. So string should be specified in quotes, and integer value should be specified as it is. So 10, comma, name. For example, in single quotes, I write Rahul. Then third is mobile number. Again, where so in single quotes 9898989898. And then fourth is address, which is again where in single quotes I put up an address. Then next is courses, so again in single quotes, so courses like OSTL, and then semicolon, but this is your first course, then AOA second course, semicolon COA, and so on. Then single quotes closing it, then comma, credits, for example say 10 credits, comma, then skills, and in skills it is varchar, so in single quotes say Python, then a semicolon, C, semicolon, Java, single quotes, then comma, and then number of courses. So for example 3 courses are specified, so 3 closing parenthesis semicolon. So the output is query OK, one row affected. It means that your insertion is successfully done. Now, once your data is inserted and you want to see the data from your table, so the query is select star stand for everything or all the columns. So select star from my table name student. Now since I have already inserted few rows into my table student earlier, so it will be having more rows than one which we have entered just now. So apart from this we will be having few more rows. So let's see that. Hit the enter key and then 6 rows are there. So row number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and then 10. So this is the row which we have just inserted. So 10, name is Rahul, mobile number is this, address is Mumbai, courses OSTL, AOS, EOA, that is 10 and so on. So this is how you can insert a data into the table and then you can see the data from the table. So you can do lot many things into the database. You can insert data into a table, you can modify the data, you can delete the data, you can update the data. So as per requirement we can do all the operations on a data. Now this is about basics of your MySQL, its installation and how to perform some basic operations on MySQL table and MySQL database. Once this is done, so the next is MySQL connector for Python. Now, when you have MySQL database management system, as I said you earlier, that it's a service, and this service can be hosted or can be running on any machine. So the machine on which your service is running is called as a host machine because that machine is hosting that database management system service for us. So our Python code can be running on the same host machine or our Python code can be running on any other machine. And these two machines can be connected by any medium through a private network, through a public network, or through anything. Now, we want to connect a Python program with a MySQL database. So for this connection, you do not have direct connection with the database management system. So there is something in between. That in between stuff, that in between software is called as a driver, which drives the connection and all the data transaction activities between a program and the database management system. So for that purpose, we have a driver or a program or a software in between our code and the database management system. Now, for Python and MySQL, such driver is called or such a package is called MySQL Connector. So you need to download and install MySQL Connector for Python. So a connector program between MySQL and Python. Now how to do that? For that, what you need to do? Our MySQL command prompt, and on this our command prompt will be issuing the command pip install MySQL dash connector dash Python. Now, as I said you that MySQL connector is a program or a package or a driver in between a programming language and the MySQL database management system. Now we have two different packages. One is MySQL connector and one is MySQL connector Python. So if I write like this, MySQL connector, So there is a package called MySQL Connector which do exist, and it is available. So if you install like this, so this package will be installed. But this package is useful for Python and MySQL, where the MySQL is below version 8. So you need to be very careful that if you are working on MySQL version 8, and you want to connect Python with MySQL version 8 database management system, then you must make use of MySQL Connector Python. So we'll be installing MySQL Connector Python. So again, the command is pip install MySQL Connector Python. Enter. And now since on my machine it is already installed, the package is already installed, that's why it says me requirement already exists. Now on your machine, when you will be installing it for the first time, that time you, instead of this, you will be getting another message where it will try to connect to a site from where it will be getting this package. It will get the package, it will install the package, and then finally it will give you a message that the package has been successfully installed. So once we do this, then the next thing is to start your Python. So I am on my Python command prompt or Python interpreter, and I'm using the latest version of Python, Python 3.8.2. Now you should be working on any version of Python above 3. So after this, my package is installed, Python is ready, MySQL DB is ready. So let's try to connect to MySQL DB. So for that, the first thing we need to do is import MySQL.connector. So the package which we are going to import is MySQL.connector. So import MySQL.connector. It has been imported. If for any reason your MySQL connector is not properly installed, so this import would give you an error message. So any error message which is thrown by this import statement, import MySQL.connector statement, it shows that there is some problem with the installation of the package MySQL.connector. So if this is imported successfully, then the next thing we need to do is getting a connection. So for that, the command is, or the statement is, mydb. This is any object name or any variable name. So mydb equals to MySQL dot connector module MySQL connector.connect. So this is a function or the API which is used to connect to the MySQL database. So we need to pass some arguments while connecting to the MySQL database, and those arguments are like the host machine name on which the MySQL server is running, then the username, and then the password. These are the minimum arguments which we need to pass. So I would be writing host equals to, in single quotes, the name of the host machine. Now you must be remembering that our MySQL server is installed on our own machine where our program is there, where our code is there. So in our case, the host is the same machine, so that is localhost. So on our local machine we have MySQL running, so our host name becomes localhost. Otherwise, it can be a name of a server on which your MySQL is running, or an IP of a server on which your MySQL is running. So if your MySQL server is running on a remote machine, so here you will be providing the IP address or the name of that remote machine. So host equal to localhost, comma, user equals to, in single quote, the username. You must be remembering that we have created the user as OHTL, comma, for password, the argument name is passwd equals to the password, and then the password of the OHTL user is OHTL user. Suppose for some reason I give a wrong password, OHTL user 12, and if I try to connect this, let's see what happens. Oh, so we are thrown with a lot many exceptions. and if you see, so so here comes the error, programming error, access denied for user OSTL localhost using password yes. So if you remember when we were trying to log in to the MySQL server from the command prompt, that time also when we have given the wrong password, that time too we were thrown with the same error. So this is the error related to the wrong password. So if I give a correct password, so I am connected. So now we are connected to a MySQL server which is running on a local host, and we are connected as a OSTL user. So the connection string is returned by this function, and that connection string is now into this object mydb, or you can say variable mydb. Now what we need to do is that after having a connection, successful connection, we need to get the cursor of this connection, cursor of the connection. Now the cursor is something like a pointer into the database which we will be using to fire different queries onto our database. So I would be writing again any object name, say my cursor equals to mydb, our object name, dot, sorry, cursor. So cursor is a function which will be returning us the cursor, and it has been successfully returned. Now my cursor is having a cursor from our connection which we can use to execute the queries. So for example, I want to execute the query, so I will be using this my cursor object. So my cursor dot execute, the function is execute, to execute a query, and then I need to pass the query as a string to this function. So for example, my first query is show databases. So the query has been executed, and the output of the query is written over here, but we are not getting it anywhere, or it is not getting displayed because that output is into the my cursor. Okay, so if I want to see the output, let's see what happens if I just write my cursor. So what is my cursor? My cursor is an object which is present at this memory location. So inside this object we have a data, and that data is the outcome of the execution of this query show databases. So how to get that data? For that we just need to iterate into this object. So I would be saying for I in my cursor, then I. Okay, so this is the output. So these are the two databases which are shown by this command, show databases. So show databases gives us the output, and that output is this one. So if you remember, this is the same output which we got when we executed the query show databases after connecting to MySQL using the user OSTL. So now, likewise, I can fire another query, and this time I want to get into our database. So I would be saying use OSTL DB. So now we are into the database OSTL DB, and now I would be throwing a query select star from my table student. Again the output is into my cursor, and if I want to show that output I need to iterate into it. So for I in my cursor, then I, and this is the output. So again same thing, we have 6 tuples or 6 rows into our table student, if you remember. And if we want to cross check it, and what we can do, we can start one more command prompt, and there we can log into our MySQL using OSTL. Use OSTL DB, and then select star from student. So the same output. So here also we have 6 rows, and this is directly into the MySQL, and here the same output, but now we are into a Python code. So using a Python program, we are getting into MySQL DB and we are fetching the required data. Now this query which we are passing as a constant string, this can be taken into some object and then that object can be passed. That is quite straightforward. So for example, I can have an object query equals to the same query, and then instead of this I would be writing this string name query. This is a derived way of executing a query. So we'll be making up a query as per requirement into some string object, and then we'll be passing that string object to the execute function. Now again, if you iterate into it, we get the same output. And if I want to see only one object, for example where the roll number is say 10, so I just need to change my query, and here I will be putting a clause where my field roll number equals to 10. Execute this query and then just iterate into our output. Okay, so now we have a single tuple or a single object or a single row which matches our query, and the query is select star from student where roll number equals to 10. So here we have only one student because that one student is having the roll number as 10. Now whatever we have done uh, on our Python interpreter, the same thing can be done using a Python script or a Python program. So all this stuff comes together, and then we have a Python code. So this is our Python program for the same thing, and this is our experiment 7. So our file name is exp7.py, and we are importing MySQL.connector into this, and the main function. Inside the main function, the first thing what we are doing is setting a connection. So the same thing, mydb equals to MySQL dot connector dot connect, and then we are passing the arguments host equals to localhost, user equals to OSTL, and password equals to OSTL user. Once a connection has been established, then we will get a cursor of that connection. So my cursor equals to my db.cursor, and then once we get or acquire the cursor, then we need to simply execute the queries. So the next statement is my cursor.execute use OSTL DB. So we are getting into our database OSTL DB. Then here we have a infinite loop, something like a menu driven code. So the menu is there where we have the first option as insert to perform the insert operations onto our database. Second option is display. Third option is to update. fourth option is to delete, and fifth option is to exit. Then we are asking for the choice. If the choice is 5, then we are breaking this infinite loop. Else if the choice is 1, that is the first option, insert, then see what all things we are doing. Now since into our table student, we are working on this table student. So if you remember, or if you describe this table, so we have all these columns: roll number, name, mobile, address, then courses, credits, skills, and number of courses. You need to careful about the sequence of the fields or the columns. Otherwise, by specifying the field name also, you can get the data or you can insert the data. Otherwise, you need to be careful about the sequence. So here what we are doing, we are asking for all this input from the user. So we are asking for the roll number from the user, we are asking for name, we are asking for mobile number, address, then courses, then we are asking for the credits, we are asking for the skills, and we are asking for the number of courses. So once we get all this data from the user, then we are calling a insert function. Now to this insert function, what all things we are passing? We are passing the cursor which we have acquired from our MySQL connection, and then we are passing the roll number, name, address, then mobile number, then credits, then courses, then skills, then number of courses. So all these arguments we are passing to the insert function, and that's what we are doing into this choice 1, that is the insert option. Now into this insert function, see what all things we are doing. So this is my insert function. So into this insert function, the first thing we are doing is creating a query. Now this query is very important. As we have seen earlier, that if you want to insert a data, so the query should be something like this: insert into a table name student, and values, and then all the values in the proper sequence as the columns are defined. So first is the roll number. Now since the roll number is integer, it should come directly. For example, 11, comma, second is name. So the name is varchar, so it should be enclosed in single quotes. So any name, say Vijay, then the mobile number, which is again varchar, so again into quotes, then address, again varchar, so again into quotes, then courses, again varchar, so again into quotes, then the credits, it's integer, so just a number, comma, then skills, again into quotes because it is varchar. So this student knows Python and say Java, then quotes, then number of courses, say 4. That, so query okay, one row affected because this row has been inserted. Now the same query will be creating over here. So when you do so, this query we are creating into a string query, so this entire query would come into double quotes. Now here you need to see carefully that we are making up a query and we are also printing a query to check that the query is properly being formed, because the query is inserted into student values, and if you see here, so we are writing plus strr. Now what is this? Now r is my roll number, and the roll number is taken as integer, but here when I am writing this roll number, so basically I am just making up a query. So I'm making up a constant string. So I want to concatenate this with this string. So string should be concatenated with a string. So string cannot be concatenated directly with the integer. So that's why we are converting this integer into a string before concatenating it. So we are concatenating two strings. So this is my concatenation plus. So I'm concatenating a roll number, then I'm concatenating a comma, because after roll number, if you see this, so after roll number you have this comma. So the first field value, first column value, comma, the second column value, comma, the third column value, comma, and so on. And these values, if the value is varying character, then it should be enclosed in single quotes. That's you need to remember properly. And if the value is not, if a value is an integer value, then it should be specified just as it is. So that's we are doing over here. So you need to be very careful about this comma and this single quotes. And this double quotes is basically for the strings. So plus, and this is again a constant string. So this double quote, this first double quote, and then this second double quote is basically for this string. And here the string is comma single quote. So comma single quote we are concatenating with this. Likewise, we'll be concatenating all other column values. And finally, we will be preparing or we will be making up a query. And we are just simply displaying that query to ensure that query has been properly formed. Once our query is ready, then what we are going to do, we are going to execute the query. Now we are passing our cursor also, and that we are accepting into this variable myc. So myc dot execute and then this query. Then this is a commit statement only to ensure that whatever operation we are performing, that operations are committed. So again we are executing another query, and that query is simply a commit. So my cursor dot execute commit, and then we are displaying the message record inserted successfully. If there is any exception in the execution of the statement, so that exception would be caught here. So we are catching that exception using except exception, and then we are simply displaying that insertion failed. And it can fail, or it may fail due to any reason. For example, the query is not properly formed, or the specific data does not match to the type of that column, and so on. So it depends. So that's how the first option is done. And let me explain you the second option also, then we'll execute our code and we'll see the output. So the second option is to display, and for the second option we are simply calling the display function, and we are passing our my cursor. So into this display function we are accepting the my cursor, we are making a query select star from student. That's all. I want to see, or I want to display all the rows of the table student. So my query select star from student, then I am executing that query my cursor dot execute query, and the output would be into my cursor, but I need to iterate as we have seen on MySQL as we have seen on Python interpreter. We need to iterate into this. So for I in my cursor print I, that's all. So this will be displaying all the rows of the table student. Now let's execute this code and let's see, does it perform the way we are expecting. So I would be executing it python and exp7.py. Okay, so I got a output as one menu is getting displayed. The first option is insert, the second option is display, update, delete, and exit. So let me go for the first option. Before going for the first option, let's go for the second option. So let's see what is the output. So I go for the second option, and I see here that there is roll number 1 tuple for roll number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, and 11, and that's what we have into our database. So if I fire the same query into my database, select star from student, so we'll be getting total 7 rows, roll number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 and 11. So the same thing we are getting over here into our Python program. So now let's try to insert something. Roll number is suppose 12. Name is say Akshay, and then mobile number is something, then address is Navi Mumbai, and then courses are OSTL, and then AOA, M4 and so on. Then the credits are say 25, skills are Akshay knows Python and Akshay knows Java. Then the number of courses are say 5, and see here we are getting two things after this. One is this line which says insert into student values 12 comma Akshay in single quotes, then a mobile number in single quotes, then the address in single quotes, then the courses in single quotes, then the credits, then the skills in single quotes, and then the number of courses. Now what is this? This is nothing but the query which we have formed over here. So we are displaying that query, and because of this print statement, this query is getting displayed. So since our query is properly formed, that's why we did not get any error over here or any exception over here. And finally, once the insertion is successfully done, so we are getting this message, record inserted successfully. So the next statement is this. So the roll number which we entered is 12. So let's see that when we go for the second option, that is display, so do we get that record into our collection or not? So yes, we are getting it. So this is roll number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 11 and 12. So this is the latest student record which we have entered to our program. And let's see whether the same thing we are getting over here. Earlier we were getting 7 rows, and when I fire the same query again, so we are getting 8 rows, and this time the roll number 12, that is Akshay, has been inserted into the database. So concurrently it is getting committed, and we are able to see it from MySQL prompt also and from our Python code also. So this is how it will be working for the insert and display. And for update, for delete, what we'll be doing, there is a surprise for you. What you need to do, that for the third option, that is update, and also for the fourth option, delete, for the third option there is a function update, and for the fourth option there is a function delete. And this update and delete, both the functions are empty. I'm just passing it to you people so that you can work on it, and you can make up the update function, you can make up a delete function. In the delete, you will be asking for the roll number of a student whose record has to be deleted, and that record you need to simply delete from the table student. How that would be doing? For example, I want to delete, so the query is delete from the table name student, and I would be saying where, the where clause, where the roll number, because I am going to delete a specific student. So for example, where the roll number is 5, so roll number equals to 5. So delete from student where roll number equals 5. Query OK, one row affected, and if I fire the query select star from student, so roll number 5 has been removed, and now you have only 7 rows. So one row has been removed where the student was having a roll number 5. So this kind of operation you can perform into this delete function. So what you will be doing, you will be accepting a roll number from the user, and that you need to do over here, because we expect all input output statement into this main, and so here you will be accepting from the user the roll number which has to be deleted, and that roll number and my cursor, these two things you will be passing. These functions are incomplete, they are not defined, these functions are incomplete. So my cursor and the roll number you will be passing, two things you will be passing, and then accordingly that specific student would be deleted from the student table. And likewise for update is if you want to update any of the column value for a specific student, or in fact for all the students. So for example, if you want to update, say this uh, say the courses, this this value is not expected value, so I want to update courses for roll number 2. So accordingly I can make up a query, say update table name and set, and then column name equals to new value where the roll number is 2, and that way you can form a query, you can execute the query, and you can update a specific student. So here also you will be accepting my cursor and the roll number whose data has to be updated. So the way we are accepting my cursor and roll number for delete function, the same way you can accept roll number, my cursor and roll number for the update function, and this way you will be completing these two functions. Okay, so this way you'll be completing the entire program. I come here and I go for the last option. The last option is simply to exit the code. Okay, I'm out of that program now, and this way you will be completing this entire program. There are many things to be done. For example, this two function has to be completed, then the documentation part has to be done. You need to have a theory part into this program, and you need to properly document it with program information, with your information, and with the relevant theory being taken from the correct sources, for example python.org and then dev.mysql.com for getting the information related to MySQL. And the most important thing is the connector, as you must be remembering that MySQL.connector you need to import, and for that you need to install the package MySQL-connector-python. And this code I will be putting the link of this program into the description part of this video, so please see the description part, and from that link on GitHub you'll be getting this code. You can download this code, you can do the modifications as required, and then you can submit that code back to me. Thank you very much. Your feedback is valuable to us, so please keep giving it. You can reach us at aiktc.ac.in, or you can contact me at tabrez@aiktc.ac.in. Thank you.